Hey guys, this is my quarter 3 passion project. These are my steps. I'm gonna make the sourdough starter, then make the actual sourdough, and then I'm gonna redo it better and do some research just to make sure I'm doing it right, and then I'm going to eat it and taste it. Okay, this is the sourdough starter that I fed with equal parts water and just normal flour for about 3 weeks. His name's Norman, and I named him because he's technically alive. It's basically a yeast, but it just has the taste of sourdough. Okay, so after I finally finished making the starter, I mix the starter with some flour, water, and oil just to make, this is basically the dough, like, that's really all you need to make. So after I mix the dough, I let it rest for about an hour, and then I'm gonna have to let it rise and rest 2 other times, and I'll talk about those later. Okay, so this is after I let Norman rest for about an hour, and I'm putting in food coloring here just because, I don't know, I wanted to be special. Okay, so after Norman rested for about an hour, I had to roll him into a ball and get him ready for the second bulk rising. So I did have to do this just for a little longer than the recipe told me to, but I feel like it'll do more good than bad. Okay, this is after he bulk rise. After this, we're going to shape it into a ball again and then put it in the Dutch oven. Okay, so in my recipe, it's mentioned these things called stretch and folds, and it said they were optional, so I didn't do them the first time, but I researched more about sourdough, and I realized that that's probably where I went wrong, because the stretch and folds really help develop the gluten. Okay, this is me scoring Norman in the Dutch oven. I didn't really do a very good job of scoring, but that doesn't really matter. This is where I started getting worried about the texture of the bread because it was really dense and not light and fluffy like the recipe described. But anyways, Norman's gonna cook in there for 20 minutes with the lid on and 40 minutes with the lid off. Okay, so here's what was wrong with it. It was dense, it was kind of like chewy, and it didn't really taste like sourdough. Okay, so for how dense the bread is, I can do more stretch and folds and add water. And for the taste, I read that you can put some whole wheat flour to add some ash and minerals to the dough. So that's what I'm going to do next time. Okay, this is attempt 2. This is just the water and oil and the starter. This time, I'm making sure to follow the recipe to a T. So, yeah, we're just mixing this up, and then we're just going to follow the same step as last time, basically. Okay, so I mixed the dough, and now I'm going to just let it rest for about an hour. Okay, so I let that dough rest for about an hour, and this is after that. So I'm going to do the stretch and folds, and I did it for about 5 to 6 hours, like every 30 minutes to an hour. And it's looking a lot different than the original dough. Okay, so what I ended up changing this time around was I did 3 parts normal bread flour and 1 part whole wheat flour. So that's why the dough does look a little different, just because the whole wheat flour has a different coloration. And also, when I was doing the biggest rise, which was like the 6-hour one, I did do some stretch and folds. So I feel like they definitely changed the texture, and I watched some short videos on how to do it. So yeah. Okay, so this is after I baked it. I baked it the same way, 20 minutes with the lid, 40 minutes off, and let me tell you, so the texture wasn't that much better. It might have been because I cut it too early, but that's just a me problem. But the texture wasn't that much better, but the taste was really good. It had improved a lot. You could really tell that it was sourdough and not just like some basic bread. So the wheat flour definitely did help. Okay, here is what I learned. Okay, so I learned that obviously you have to follow the recipe. I learned that every time, and somehow I always just am too laid back about it. But I also learned that you shouldn't just stick to one recipe. You should also do some research to find out if that recipe is trustful and they know what they're talking about.